Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery, and the system that I've got up here on the bench already, it's my VermiBag Tote. And in my VermiBag Tote, we've got what's known as the red worm mix, otherwise also known as, I believe, Uncle Jim mix. So what it is, supposedly, is a combination of red wigglers, European night crawlers, and the Indian blue worms. And there's no real accounting for exactly what's living in here, but that's supposedly what it's, meant to be. And under the plastic, I mean, look, it's so weird. This doesn't look like any other system of mine. All these little black spots. Just wondering what these are. Seems like, oh, you know what it is? Worms have been leaving behind castings inside the plastic bag. Here's a worm inside the plastic bag. All right, so let's get back to on topic here. Let's get rid of the plastic and let's get to work. This is now a 200-day-old system. So happy 200th day in service. And we did something a little interesting in here last time. We were testing out a variety of different nuts that I have. And it's an assortment of, I believe, 5 different types of nuts. So we took a little sample of each of the 5. And we arranged them in the bin here. I took notes so I can be reminded as to how these were arranged in here. And it's a good thing we took some notes, because in some places it's kind of hard to tell what was there. I think I could tell from the shape of that, right, that that's going to be one of the cashews, and that actually from the appearance of it also looks like the almond. As far as the pecan, though, I'm not sure what we're going to find of the pecan. Pecan. I think it's pronounced different ways in different locations. Under here, under the castings, I think we've still got signs of the Brazil nuts, and these macadamia nuts look pretty slimy with some mold growing on there. But besides what was placed in here as like a representation of what was here, the whole nut was put in here alongside a little pile of broken up bits of the same type. Over here, looks like there is actually still some pecan left over here, and these little white things on the pecan, I think those are springtails, and that might be a potworm, another potworm. So a variety of different types of creatures are showing interest in these foods. Oh geez, look at that. As soon as you pick away a little bit, that's where the worms are hanging out. There's a good bit of them over there. We also had these things growing out out last time too. So the ones that we picked off last time and just threw back in as worm food are still here. Here's another chunk of the one we took out last time. So now let's keep going here. The almond. Not much left of the almond. It's deteriorating here too. You just have to pick the material away a little bit, and that's where you're going to find the worms hanging out apparently. It was interesting too how some of the nuts were almost invisible and covered. Ooh, that's weird. It's like I could press the whole surface down and it pops back up as if there's just like a huge mound of worms under there or something. Is that what I'm sensing? Weird. Yeah, there's definitely worms hanging out right below the macadamia nuts. Let's see, the Brazil nuts. Over here there was just this weird feeling when I pressed down, how it like sort of rebounded. And I think it's whatever's going on over here. There's some definite activity happening right underneath the Brazil nuts. I mean, we could have the same thing going on under all the ones we tested. Who knows? Maybe we'll take a look like this under the other ones as well. We'll barge in on their party and see what they've got going on. What's so interesting, guys? Look at them all. I can feel them going through my fingers, too. That's funny. Ugh. Oh, that's so weird. Did I just say ugh? Ugh, I should bite my tongue. Oh, that's kind of interesting, too. All these springtails. I got a feeling, despite the fact that this is a fabric bag and that it breathes pretty good, and at times we've even struggled keeping it moist in certain sections, at the present time, I'm getting this feeling like it's just overly damp right now. It's weird. I almost feel like I don't even want to cover up with plastic again, but I think we are going to cover up with plastic because it's going to actually be sort of a component of what we're feeding them today. Because what we're going to be feeding them is dry, and we're going to need the plastic covering to start the recirculation of the material that's already present here within the system to, come up and dampen this dry food. And I kind of liked the way we fed with, oh, by the way, this is about 50% pecans. So pecans were right over here in the middle. This is actually a Brazil nut that belongs over there, but the pecan is what we're going to be giving them a newly devised worm chow mix of. Looks like I didn't really do a very good job chopping some of it up. There's some larger chunks in there, but it doesn't seem to matter, right? Because even after, it's been 10 days since they were last fed, the stuff just sort of, becomes pasty, and they'll eat it, I'm sure pretty quickly. It's all the stuff that I already chopped into little itsy bitsy bits. Itsy bitsy bits. So there was, besides those larger chunks of actual whole cashew, there was also a pile of cashew that I had fine chopped with my amateur kitchen chef skills. And we got it to a pretty small particle size, and I think that stuff is nowhere to be seen. It's just the whole representative nuts that we found of the almond. Let's see how the almond's doing. I think this bin in general is just pretty busy everywhere. So I don't think it's very surprising to find good numbers of worms, but that was pretty interesting under the Brazil nuts how we found that big mound of worms right there. So they must have been working down some sort of a yummy food item. There's really nothing in here though that requires being left alone as far as its physical position in the bin, so I'm kind of getting this feeling like I'd like to just give this whole system a nice little blend. And I guess these nuts that we fed whole, interesting how it gets all mushy and gooey on the outside, and the inside is still kind of hard, almost crunchy. At this point, those are just going to kind of blend in. I want to just give all the material a good, thorough inspection, and then we'll give the system its 20th feeding, today on its 200th day in service. And that'll give us really easy math, telling us that on average it's been 10 days between feedings each time. And this is going to be a unique feeding. I think I've probably fed them chow in the past, but this chow now has a new ingredient, nuts, primarily cashew, so this is like a cashew blend. Some of the other older ingredients that I've used in previous worm chow recipes that I used here too is sunflower seeds. I used some. No, I didn't. Oh, did I? No, I think it was pumpkin. I used pumpkin seeds, oats. What else? I don't even know. Was there anything else? Might have just been pumpkin seeds and oats that I used. Oh, you know what? A little bit of cornmeal too. I threw that in there. Because some people were saying, if you just take the nuts themselves and you throw them in the little blender, you're going to end up with peanut butter, basically. Consistency stuff, which I didn't want. So I knew right from the get-go that I would have to be blending it with some sort of a drier accompanying substance as sort of a medium to help it remain, sort of fluid and granular, powdery almost. But it's certainly not as powdery as the previous mix that we had, which was seeds and grains. Here with the nuts included and that extra oil content that the nuts bring with them, that's going to definitely change the consistency of the mix that we end up with. And I hope they like it. Now, another thing I threw in there too was something I haven't used in some time, but it seemed like another good ingredient worthy of being used because the worms like it. And it would also help control mites, which is something I believe this bin has quite a number of. I threw some NEEM cake or NEEM seed meal in here as well into this mix. So it's an interesting new mix. I'm curious to see how the worms take to it. I've got a feeling they're going to like it. And it was interesting watching the video from last time, because when you just sat back and let the material sit for a moment, you could just see mites crawling everywhere on this stuff. It's so weird when you're just in here looking at things and checking out the worms. You don't even hardly notice it, but when you're watching the video, they're there and they're in good numbers. I'm just going to take my hand out of the scene and maybe we could just do a little fast footage here and check them out. I wanted to wait long enough to let all the worms dive And I'm assuming that'll give us a little bit of footage showing us a little bit of movement out here on the surface. Here again, you can't see it in real time, and my eyes aren't very good. So it always presents itself so much better on the video. But yeah, I got this piece of cardboard here. I'm going to fashion it in the way we did in another of my systems when we were giving the system its second to last and last feedings. It was a layer of cardboard riddled full of holes. So I'm going to punch this thing full of holes, and then we're going to lay on the and we're going to lay it on thick. We're going to lay on the chow. And then we're even going to dampen this cardboard originally. I thought we would just cover the whole thing with plastic and the existing moisture in the system would be enough to dampen this thing. But I've also got this BTI mosquito dunks solution that I'd like to include as well. So we're just going to dampen this cardboard with that stuff. But I need to cut a little bit off. It's too big. So let's see. Let me trim this thing and puncture it, and then we'll get this thing set up. How do you like it? Not bad, eh? Punched it full of holes. Worms should have absolutely no trouble coming up through those holes to get access to the yummy food. So let me think here. Feels like we're getting to the end much too quickly. Oh yeah, a question came up about this system recently. It was questioning whether or not the worms... How'd this little guy get up on the cardboard? Where'd he come from? I'm just going to set this aside for a moment. Question came up about the underside of this bag, beneath the bag and around the sides, about whether or not worms get over there. And I was asked whether they do or they don't, or are they under there or not, or what the deal was, and I didn't know. So I figured, why don't we just take a peek in here together, and we'll see if we can get an answer to that question. Let's see what we've got. Oh my goodness. Well, I think the answer is a resounding yes. Worms definitely do like getting down underneath the bag, I guess, and it is a little bit damp under there, and that would explain why. How about this side? Oh my goodness, look at that. Another little stash of worms. All right, let's let these little guys get situated back into their home, and then we'll get a couple more things together here so that we can set up their feeding, and then we'll be done. Well, we've allowed most of them to dive down into the bedding, and I guess we're just going to proceed. I just rinsed off my... It's always when you just rinsed off your glove. It's like you question whether you want to get it dirty again or not. But here I wanted to just level it off after we were probing around the sides there. It seems that we've sort of shifted the whole contents over to one side. We'll get things nice and level here so that our platform for this interesting new worm chow can get fed. Oh, you know what we should do? I just had this funny idea. I'm thinking, hey, in commemoration of the fact that it's 200 days, maybe we don't just pour the food out. Maybe we actually write the word or the number 200 using the worm chow. How does that sound? Is that a good novel idea? Oh, and to make sure the worm chow stays put where we put it, let's dampen this perfect opportunity. Rinse off my glove again. We'll dampen the cardboard with this BTI mix. They say, I think I've heard people mention how BTI will also help with reducing mites too, so maybe the mites will be reduced here as well, besides the flying insects. Although I think somehow, considering how it looked in past check-ins, I think we are seeing a reduction in the number of flying insects in here. Because I mean, they were here in small numbers, but certainly not like we've seen in the past. So maybe the BTI is starting to work. All right, let's get this feeding in place. Now I just need to, in my mind, imagine what the number 2 would look like upside down. So maybe if I come around to this side of the bin and I can try to sprinkle it in here from the side, I'll be able to do so in a legible way. And try to do it in a way that's kind of on the generous side too. It's not bad, except the zeros are going to have to be pretty narrow. And the numbers are going to have to be kind of touching each other too. I think you can get the hint if you're creative, imaginative observer. Let's try to get one more zero in here. What do you think? Oh, I can always come in here with my hand a little bit, right? And try to help things look a little more the way they should. Whatever, good enough. All right, everyone. Well, join me in congratulating this bin for making it to day 200. And what I did in the other bin after we fed like this, we came back in a week or 10 days later, I forget, and the cardboard that we had placed the food on was still kind of holding up. So we were able to flip it over upside down in one piece and then give that last feeding of more chow on the other side. And then by the next time we checked in, that cardboard was toast. It was completely gone. So we might do that here too. I thought about making this 20th feeding its last and then starting to drive the system towards harvest, but it would be kind of cool to do a repeat of what we did in the other system with this piece of cardboard and with the chow. So, all right, everyone, that's pretty much all we got here, I think. Hopefully I didn't forget anything important. All I got to do is bring back the coverings here. And I think this system would do well at some point in the near future getting switched over to a non-plastic covering that would allow for a little bit more breathing and a little bit more drying. Because the material, as nice as it is, the material, as nice as it is kind of wet, you know, and the worms love it. But at some point, if I were to try to, you know, set up a baiting station or a migration feeding zone to try to lure them into some other section of the bin, there'd be no reason for them to leave. The material that they're in right now is just so comfortable and damp that it might serve us well to let this stuff start drying off a little bit for future activities. So, all right, everyone, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.